guys, I'm back after a long break. Sorry to be away so long, but I just had a lot of life things going on that I had to take care of. So I'm back. We're gonna take a look today at something that I've been promising you guys for a long time, and I know I'm really late in doing this, but we're gonna get started today. We'll be back with the BitBox pretty soon, and hopefully we'll have something really special for the next episode. And here we go. So let's take a look. Alright, so I'm finally working on my gaming board. I've done a little bit of prep work before I'm showing you guys this stuff. I'll go over what I did, but nothing really complicated yet. So I'll just show you that, and you should be able to know how to do that. Basically what I've got is some 5/8 inch plywood. I just got a 4x8 sheet and had them cut it into 2-foot strips. So I've got 2-foot by 4-foot strips. I've got 3 of them here, and then I've got an extra one in the garage. So I've got a 4-foot by 6-foot table. Now, there's a couple of things I'm going to be doing different with this table than what I've seen other people do with their table. And I'll go over the pros and cons that I'm seeing as I go. I'm just kind of making this up as I go, so I'm probably going to make a whole lot of mistakes. Hopefully I'll make them and you guys can learn from them and not make the same mistakes. First off, one of the problems I've got is that plywood tends to bow and warp, and I've cut this into sections because I couldn't get a 4-foot by 6-foot gaming table from my garage into my house to play, and I have to store it in my garage. So I cut it into sections for portability, but the sections don't match up perfectly. Now I've got some ideas that we'll be looking at later to try to minimize that, but you can kind of see in the middle here where the sections aren't really matching up all that good, and it's just because the middle piece is bowed a little bit, so it's not matching up perfectly. The only other prep work I've really done, well, I sanded the boards down a bit, took the rough edges off, and then I got some 1.5 inch foam that Carlo from Let's Cut Foam sent me, and I made a couple of hills. I made them basically the same on both sides, so there's no real, the board itself doesn't have any real benefit to either side. There's no tactical advantage for whichever side you pick based on what's attached to the board. Now when you put out the individual terrain pieces on the board, there might be some, and this is probably all I'm really going to attach to the board. The rest of it I'm going to use just individual terrain pieces on the board so that the board's more versatile. Now, of course, these hill pieces aren't exactly the same, but they're tactically the same. They each have a ramp on this side and a ramp over there. You can see there's the ramp on that side and the ramp going up in the front. They've each got about the same surface area on the top, and they've each got a higher hill in the back. So we'll take a closer look at those, and then we'll get on to doing some work on this thing. Okay, so we're going to focus in a bit on one of the hills here on one side. Basically done them both the same, so explaining one explains the other. Essentially, I took Carlo had sent me the foam in squares, so I took 2 of them and put them together in the middle, and then just kind of cut a rough pattern out here, and I just cut that with a hot wire table. So I just cut around, drew a pattern out on the foam, and just sliced it up with a hot wire. And then I did some angle cuts with the hot wire for the ramp. Now interestingly, you can see the pattern that hot wire made. Now I'm going to smooth that out for this table. However, the piece that got cut off of it I thought was really cool, and what has happened is, like, this is the back end piece and here's the thing. This looks just like a sand dune, so I'm going to keep hold of this because if I go to making desert terrain, I think that'd be really cool. And this effect really was just a matter of the wire I had it up on the highest temperature, but because the wire had to go through so much surface area, it was cooling down, and it would kind of jump through this and made that texture. So I just thought that was really cool, and this whole thing being cut like this came out looking kind of like a sand dune with a straight face on one side and a slope face on the other, with this kind of weird this weird texture to it. So anyway, I just thought that was kind of cool. Thought I'd share that. But for this board, I'm going to be smoothing that out. We're going to make this kind of a rocky cliff face here, and make the back piece kind of a rocky cliff face. Okay, so right before we get started, I just want to let you know I've just glued this down to the table and glued the pieces together with regular carpenter's glue, wood glue. The reason I use that is because it doesn't have as high a water content as white glue, so it dries faster. And it's a little tackier when it goes on to begin with, so it's easier to get the stuff to stay when you're clamping it. It doesn't slide around as much, and it's got a stronger bond than white glue when it's done, so it'll be a little sturdier. Now you're going to notice that because I've put and it's not too bad, so it may be a little hard to see, sorry for the shaky cam, but I've got a bit of a gap there that I want to fill in. It's a little bit worse on the other hill, but I want to just kind of smooth that gap out. So what I've got is just spackling. Now I'm using this kind, the DAP Drydex spackling, and I'm just going to use my finger and kind of smooth it out. Now this doesn't have to be really pretty, because there's going to be some flock over this. It's going to disguise a lot of it, but I just didn't want any big holes, gaping holes in there. So alright, and then basically I'm just going to do the same thing to the other hill, so no difference in technique. I'll go do that and then we'll be back. Alright, so I filled in the gaps with the caulk, or the spackle, and now while I'm waiting on that to dry, I'm going to do a little work on the ramps here. I just need to smooth them out with some sandpaper. So I've just got some 120 grit sandpaper here. It's kind of, you know, it's just medium sandpaper, and I'm just going to kind of smooth this stuff out, these ramps. I'm not going to do a lot of this with the camera on, because A, it makes a lot of nasty noise in the camera, and B, I got to move my camera so I don't get sand dust all in my camera and screw it up. So, but basically I'm just sanding this stuff out, and we'll come back and take a look when I'm done. Alright, so there we are, all sanded up. You can see I just smoothed this out with sandpaper and kind of rounded the edges. Made sure this was coming down flush to the table. It doesn't have to be perfect, because there's going to be some flock and stuff like that on it to hide some of the lines. One thing I did have to fix on this other one over here, we'll zoom in on that a little bit, is you can see where on this one the edge was lifting up. So I just put some caulk or some spackle down on the edge here to try to smooth it towards the board a little bit, because there was quite a gap. So once that dries, I'll sand that a little smoother, and once we get paint and flock on it, nobody will know the difference. But I just didn't want that big a gap in there. So now what we're going to do is we're going to shape the cliff faces. So the way I'm going to do that, sorry for shaky cam again, just moving the tripod around. I've got a metal ruler. It's got cork on the back, but that's not necessary. That's just what this one happens to have. And I'm just going to take it and scrape along the edge here, and this is going to make some nice natural looking rock kind of striations. And I'll change the angle of the ruler every once in a while, dig out a little more on the top. You just want to make it irregular, and then you gotta kind of bring it in a little bit less striation towards where things smooth out, because you need a transition between the rock and the smooth ramp. But that's it. That's all I'm going to be doing. I got to go around all the cliff faces and do that. So I'll go ahead and do that on all the cliff faces, and then we'll come back and take a look at all that stuff. Okay, so I finished that with the ruler. That's really easy. Between both hills, I spent maybe 10 minutes doing this. I will warn you though that technique makes an incredible mess. So I spent 10 minutes doing the stuff and 15 minutes with the vacuum cleaner cleaning it up. So, you know, the price you pay, I guess. But basically, here's what we've got. Now, this is going to be a little easier to see once it's all painted up and shaded and stuff, but you're going to get the idea. And I will do some things like dig in some little, if it'll focus, dig in some little crevices and change the angle of the ruler and dig harder in some places and softer in others. I made sure to do this part up here. Sometimes I'll just get my fingers in there and pinch a piece and pull it out so it makes a bigger hole. It should just be varied. If you go look at a mountain, they're not pretty I mean, they're pretty, but they're not organized and symmetrical, and they're very chaotic. So, you know, just go to town on these things. Like I said, I didn't put a lot of thought into this. 10 minutes of whacking around with a ruler and I was done. Now the one thing you do want to do is, once you get done with the ruler part and get things out of your way, you want to kind of rub over it with your fingers. Now, not too hard, but enough to get, you see all this stuff that's coming off? You just want to make sure you knock off all the loose bits, because what you don't want to have happen is you don't want to paint this and then that stuff pulls off real easy and you got little pink areas showing through. So make sure you go through and do all this and pull off anything that looks like it's going to be problematic after you paint. Because once you paint it, I'm actually going to goop this too, but once you goop it and paint it, you're gonna be awfully upset if these things start flaking off and you have a bunch of pink spots on your hands. So anyway, I'm gonna go through and rub those down. That is it for today's video, and when I come back, we'll start putting some color on this stuff. We'll see you next time.